Once upon a time, in a quiet and beautiful small town nestled among green hills and shining rivers, there lived a young man named Gorav who was full of life but also full of excuses. Gorav was a dreamer, and every single night he would lay down on his small bed and stare at the ceiling, imagining a life that was far beyond his current reality. He pictured himself standing on enormous, dazzling stages with lights shining bright, hearing endless applause from thousands of people who admired him and his achievements. He dreamed of fame, of having his name written in newspapers and shouted by enthusiastic fans, and he imagined interviews, awards, and traveling the world in luxury. He saw himself wearing sharp suits, living in a grand house with big glass windows, driving expensive cars, and holding hands with important people in high society parties. In these dreams, Gorav felt powerful, respected, and above all, free from the worries that had always held him back in his small-town life. But while his mind soared high into the sky of possibilities, his body and his actions stayed stubbornly stuck to the ground, refusing to move. Every morning, as the first rays of sunlight gently touched his window and birds sang cheerful songs, Gorav would open his eyes and feel a momentary rush of motivation. He would whisper to himself, "From today I will start everything new, I will become the person I always wanted to be, I will take action and change my life forever." He imagined himself jumping out of bed, stretching his arms toward the future, and starting the day with unstoppable energy and focus. But instead, he would turn over, pull the blanket tighter, and close his eyes again, telling himself, "Just 5 more minutes of rest and then I will begin." Those 5 minutes would turn into an hour, and then into another, until finally he would drag himself out of bed feeling guilty but too comfortable to care deeply. He would scroll endlessly through his phone, watching videos of successful people, reading inspirational quotes, and thinking that simply watching them was equal to taking action. He believed that tomorrow held a magical power, that tomorrow he would finally have enough courage and discipline to take the steps he kept postponing today. He planned big workouts, new diets, online courses, job applications, and even starting his own business, but each plan was always set to start tomorrow. His family often watched him with a mix of sadness and frustration, seeing a bright young man with enormous potential waste his days in illusions and distractions. They would tell him with gentle voices and sometimes with harsh words, "Son, the most valuable thing you have is your time, and every second you waste is a part of your dreams fading away." His mother would often sit by his bed and softly say, "Life will not wait for you, you must stand up and chase it before it runs far away." His father, though stricter, would warn him, "You think you have plenty of time, but time is like sand slipping through your fingers, and once it's gone, no power in the world can bring it back." Gorav, however, would simply smile, nod politely, and tell them, "Don't worry, I have it all under control, I will fix everything very soon." Deep inside, he convinced himself that there was still an ocean of time left, a never-ending supply of chances, and that he was too young to worry about rushing anything. But as the days melted into weeks and weeks rolled into months, nothing changed except for the growing pile of regrets and the shrinking confidence he had in himself. One morning, after a long night of tossing and turning, haunted by feelings of guilt and fear of an unfulfilled life, Gorav decided that he needed answers that he could not find on his own. He remembered hearing stories from townsfolk about an old wise man who lived at the edge of the village, a man known for his silence and deep understanding of life's secrets. People said this wise old man had guided many lost souls, taught them the meaning of life, and helped them find their true purpose with simple words that carried deep wisdom. Desperate and filled with a flicker of hope, Gorav dressed up early, skipped his phone-scrolling ritual, and walked toward the outskirts of the village where the old man stayed. The morning air felt different that day, sharp and refreshing, as if it carried messages from the universe urging Gorav to finally take that first real step. When he arrived, he saw the old man sitting peacefully under a massive ancient tree whose branches looked like they touched the sky and whose roots looked like they embraced the earth. The old man's eyes were closed, his face looked calm and glowing, and his breathing was so gentle that it felt like he was part of the wind and the leaves around him. Gorav stood there silently, afraid to disturb the serenity of the moment, feeling both nervous and strangely comforted by the old man's presence. Finally, after a few moments, he folded his hands with deep respect and softly spoke, "Sir, I feel lost, I feel like I am watching my life slip away without doing anything meaningful." He paused, his voice trembling, and continued, "I have dreams that make my heart race, but I can't seem to take a single step toward them, and each day I feel more disappointed in myself." Tears began to fill his eyes as he admitted, "I keep waiting for tomorrow to save me. But tomorrow never comes, and I stay the same while the world keeps moving forward without me." The old man opened his eyes slowly, and for a moment, it felt as if he could see right through Gorav's soul. reading every thought, every regret, and every hidden fear. He gave Gorav a gentle smile, one that felt like sunlight breaking through a dark cloud, and then after a long pause he said in a calm and deep voice, "Let me tell you a story." Gorav leaned forward, his heart beating faster, hoping that within this story he might find the key he had been searching for all along. The old man began, "There was once a noble king, loved by his people because he ruled with kindness, fairness, and an open heart that understood the pain of even the poorest peasants. One day as the king was traveling through his kingdom, he met a man who looked broken, tired, and hopeless, dressed in torn clothes and covered in dust from the streets. This man had no job, no money, no respect, and he carried with him an aura of sadness and bitterness that seemed to push people away. The king, curious and compassionate, stopped his royal carriage and stepped out to speak directly to the man, surprising everyone around with his humility. He asked the man, "Why are you in this condition? What stops you from changing your life and becoming someone who is respected and happy?" The man looked up with tired eyes and replied quickly, "It's not my fault, Your Majesty. No one wants to help me, everyone thinks I am worthless, and life has always treated me unfairly." The king listened carefully, noticing how the man avoided taking any responsibility and blamed the world for all his problems without seeing his own role in creating them. Feeling pity but also wanting to teach him a lesson, the king made an extraordinary offer, saying, "Come to my palace before sunset today, and whatever gold and silver you can carry away will belong to you." The man's face lit up with excitement and shock. He could not believe his ears and immediately felt a rush of joy and possibility fill his heart. He ran home with all the energy he had, bursting through the door to tell his wife about the unbelievable opportunity the king had given him. His wife, equally amazed, told him urgently, "You must go immediately. Don't waste even a second, this is a chance of a lifetime that will never return." But instead of listening to her wise words, the man touched his belly and said, "I am very hungry, let me eat first so that I have the strength to carry as much treasure as possible." He sat down to eat a big meal, enjoying every bite slowly as if he had all the time in the world, ignoring the precious minutes slipping away. After finishing his meal, he felt his eyelids grow heavy and thought to himself, "I'll just rest for a short while, I have so much time left before sunset." He lay down for what he promised would be a quick nap, but soon he drifted into a deep sleep, snoring peacefully as the sun moved across the sky. Hours passed, and by the time he woke up, panic and regret immediately took over his entire being, making his heart race like a drum. He grabbed some bags in a hurry, sprinting toward the palace with sweat dripping from his forehead and his mind screaming at him to move faster. The midday sun was blazing hot, and halfway through, he felt exhausted and decided to rest under a large tree with cool shade and a gentle breeze. He leaned against the tree trunk, telling himself, "Just a few minutes of rest, then I will run like the wind to the palace." But once again, his weakness took over, and he fell into a deeper, longer sleep, losing even more time as the shadows on the ground grew longer. When he finally opened his eyes, he realized with horror that the sun was almost touching the edge of the horizon, and the sky had turned a fiery orange. He jumped up, running with all the energy left in his tired body, pushing past branches and stones, his breath sharp and shallow. When he reached the palace gates, he saw that they had already closed, the guards were gone, and silence filled the air like a cruel reminder of what he had lost. He stood there trembling, his hands empty, his bags useless, his heart broken into pieces by his own laziness and delay. Tears poured down his face as he fell to his knees, crying not just for the lost treasure but for all the chances in life he had wasted in the same careless way. The old man looked at Gorav with eyes full of both kindness and sharp truth, waiting patiently for the realization to sink into his young listener's heart. Gorav sat there frozen, unable to speak, as he saw a mirror of his own life in the poor man's story, seeing clearly how he too kept delaying his golden opportunities. For the first time, no excuses formed in his mind, no blaming society, no pretending that tomorrow would save him, only a painful but powerful realization washed over him. Slowly he stood up, bent forward in deep respect, and with a voice trembling but firm he said, "Thank you, sir, I understand now more clearly than ever before." In that moment, something shifted inside Gorav's soul. A silent promise formed in the deepest part of his being that he would never again take time for granted. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing content every day.